So when we look at this long story of how we've figured out more and better ways to manipulate nature and produce more and more food with genetics and fertilizer and irrigation and all of these very clever things we've done, we see an evolution that goes in fits and starts, sort of a punctuated evolution, where we figure out a way to manipulate nature that then provides for us, and that inevitably leads to some kind of problem, shortages or some kind of problem, and then we go to another solution. And that seems to be the way we are. That seems to be the way we are as a species. That's one way of thinking about that is we'll always be solving problems, but another way to think about that is we can always come up with solutions too. Now we can't assume that we can solve every problem that we have created in the future. But if we look at our past, we see that we have overcome lots and lots of problems with our ingenuity, and that seems to be our way we are as a species, that we're always living in an experiment, we're always creating new problems, we're always solving those problems which create new problems, and that is probably the way we will always exist as a species. That there are really no silver bullets. We are living in an incredibly transformative time, and I think it may be as transformative as the domestication of agriculture some 12,000 years ago, in that we're now transitioning from being a farming species to an urban species. And that is a fundamentally different way of being. It's a different way of feeding civilization. Most people, as farmers, were engaged in producing food. Going forward, most people will not be engaged in producing food, and it is a fundamentally different way that we are using nature to keep civilization going. So you can see that most of the population growth from here on out is in less developed regions and is in urban regions. So we are now an urban species, which will create problems for us and will also lead us to new solutions. So that's where we are as a species. We're always living in an experiment. There are never silver bullets. We will always be creating new problems and working towards new solutions. To me, that gives me a somewhat optimistic way of thinking about the world, is that we're always in this pattern. Also, a little disarming that we'll never be able to say we're done with the problem of how do we get food from the world, how do we use nature. But we will always be experimenting, and I think that's just the way we are. That's who we are as a species.